Hi team, good evening and welcome to ISTQB Foundation Level Certification Training Day 1. We are all excited for this brand new session. It's a new course we have come up with, and it's a completely different type of course that we have launched when compared to the courses that we have launched in the recent times, and I hope you all will enjoy it. So first things first, I will walk you through today's agenda. So today's agenda, we will first talk about the recap about the exam structure, and followed by the syllabus, ISTQB syllabus, and the most important of all is the blueprint of ISTQB. So what is the question type, or how they formulate their questions, what pattern do they follow, and so on. We will also talk about the recommended books by ISTQB, which we will be using it in a consolidated manner. So I will talk about what are the recommended books by ISTQB. However, we will put all the good things together so that it would be a very nice session for you all. It would be a cakewalk for each one of you. So I'll just brief about that in few minutes. Then we will start with the chapter 1, the session 1, that is today's session. We have a few things to be covered as part of today's session. And also you will take a mock test online right in GoToMeeting. I will launch the test and you will attempt the test, and this is a kind of unit test, or a kind of what we call it as a recap of what is your understanding all about, so that it would be much more interesting, like in the sense whatever you go through for that session, are you able to answer those questions, and we will try to answer those questions and discuss those as well in the sessions. Fine. So now let's first talk about the exam structure. A quick recap. We have people who have already seen in the orientation session, it's fine, but just that I want to put this in place so that whoever is starting new today will get to know the exam structure. So there is a 40 multiple choice question with one positive mark, or that is 1 mark for each correct answer. And the good thing about this particular test is there are no negative marks. Apart from that, we also have 65% as a success criteria, which means that you should score more than 26 or 26 or more, anything is fine. Duration is 1 hour, and exam fee differs from each location. And I will also talk about how to register for the exam for our Indian as well as the US participants who actually are more than 80% of the audience. This is the location from where people join, so US and India. Based on the audiences, we will also talk about how to register for your locality. Alright, that would be the last session after we finish everything, not in today's session, but after the end of this ISTQB course, the last session about how to register for the certification and where to register and so on. Fine. We will also talk about the topics. It is a very high level topic. We have to talk about the fundamentals of testing, the test life cycle, the techniques associated with it, static and dynamic, and test design techniques, and how to manage our test, and what are the tools that are supported for testing. In today's session, we will try to cover why is testing necessary, what is testing, and we will also try and cover the 7 fundamental principles of testing based on the available bandwidth. Okay, fine. Now, the most important thing is to understand how this ISTQB examination has been formulated. There are 4 different categories of things that we need to learn throughout the course. The first is K1. K1 type of question is a type of question which will test your remembrance, recognize, or recall skills. Okay, K1 type of questions will enable you to understand the concepts which you should be able to remember and recognize and recall it. And there is also K2 wherein sometimes you need to put in your thoughts and then try to explain or reason out, compare, classify, categorize, or give examples or summarize. So that falls under K2 type of questions. We also have got K3 and K4, wherein K3 stands for you apply and then use your knowledge in a particular scenario, whereas in K4 you analyze the complete situation and answer the given question. So there are 4 broad categories of type of questions, or I would call it as the level of learning objectives which we need to meet at the end of the course. So please don't get baffled with K1, K2, K3, K4. It's all the different type of questions. I will point out whenever it's required. Okay, so it's just that you need to understand that they are going to test different type of skills associated with, not skills in the sense, different type of understanding levels of your ISTQB certification examination. Fine. So what is this K1, K2, K3, K4 is for? Okay, next slide is going to answer this question. So this, as per the K levels, they have formulated the ISTQB examination. Okay, so the K levels are K1, K2, K3, K4, which I have discussed. You can see the total number of questions are 40, isn't it? So if K1 type of questions, you will get 20, and K2 you will get 12, and K3 and K4 together you will get 8. So just to recap, K1 is remembrance, and K2 you have to understand, explain and reason out, and K3 is apply and use, and K4 is analyze. So how many number of questions coming for each K level? This is just for our understanding. So if we are able to understand this perspective, we will be able to concentrate on the areas where we need to put in more efforts. So here we are trying to give you an analogy of how to crack the examination. Alright. So if we follow the blueprint, we will be able to achieve our goals very easily. Each question has this takes care of this K level. Each question carries a K level. Based on the K levels, this question format has been designed. You can also see the number of questions per each chapter. You see chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 chapters, which I have shown you in the beginning of this slide. So now you can understand the importance of each chapter, how much you need to focus. You can see here, chapter 4 gets the maximum number of questions. Chapter 5, the next number of questions that comes from, the second most number of questions comes from chapter 5. And then you have got chapter 1 and 2. So the least number of questions comes from chapter 3. Alright. So this way we are trying to focus more on the chapter wise as well as the K levels on blueprint areas, so which will help you to crack the examination. This is a kind of approach that we will take, which will, it's a guide or a tool which will help you to understand how to make your examination pretty easy. Okay, fine then. I would like to hear from you all. Have you got everything out of it, or can you please tell me if you have got any questions? I am ready to answer it straight away. So in the one question from one of the audience is that in the orientation sessions you said there is no dedicated book for the test. What chapters we are talking about now? Great question. So the one that I meant in the orientation session is that we, in the sense, you need not have a book in the sense to crack the test. That was the question. So you need not have the book to understand or to appear for the examination. What we will here and try and do it is, there are ISTQB certified books from where we collect all those. There are more than 5 books. Okay, recommended books, there are more than 5 books, and there are a lot more in the market. We can't get all the materials in one shot, right? Each book is costing more, so we will not be able to afford. So what we are trying to do is that we have collected the best materials from each one of those books, put it together so that to make your life simple. Okay, so I hope I have answered your question. Great. So team, any other questions? Please feel free to put it in the chat channel. We have a chat window. You can put in your questions, or I'll be happy to move on. Fine. So only one question so far. That's fine. So let's keep moving on. The next thing that we want to focus is the ISTQB reference books. Even they are recommending few books that are there in the market. It doesn't mean that you you religiously follow one of these books, you will be able to know. So we should put in our efforts. There are various types of questions that comes in from various parts of the contents. So we need to focus on each one of these areas so that we will be able to crack the exam. You can see here, this is the first and topmost book that was recommended by ISTQB, that is from Dorothy Graham, and also there is one from British Computer Society. And we will also have the software testing foundations, fundamentals of software testing, and also what is software testing by ilovetesting.com. Fine. So there are a lot of books. Apart from this, you can also find there are many books in the market. Okay, but we will not be able to get all those books and materials to get through the exam. So what we are trying to do is that collect the best materials. So based on our experience, because when I did my ISTQB, I did all these research putting together, and it was very easy for me to crack the examination. Okay, and there are few sample questions from each one of those books. Apart from that, there are many questions from other books that we have also referenced. So it doesn't mean that what is the topmost recommended book, even though I cracked the examination. So each book has got a very good explanation on one part, and the other book has got a very good explanation on the other half. So we from IDLearn cannot suggest you the best book that is like kind of Bible we can follow. No. Each book has got its own clarity of thought as well as the explanation mechanism they have followed. But we will try and get as many things as possible from our best references, put it in place so that it will be easy for you to crack the test. Fine. Right. So with this, we will come to end of all about the ISTQB part. We will now get into the actual session, what it is all about, like getting into the context of topics, and then we will do a mock test in today's session. Before moving on, I would like to hear from you all. If you have got any questions so far what we have dealt, I am ready to answer. So question from one of our members, how long video sessions are available? So video sessions are available based on the subscription levels. You can check out our website. Based on the subscription levels, you will get your video access. And the next is, what's your most recommended book? Again, there is nothing like a hard and fast rule. You have to go with one of the books. There is no hard and fast rules. So as I explained already, each book has got the context explained in one way or the other. Okay, our final goal is to understand, just understand the concept, and you should apply the thought in the question. Okay, no book will tell you what is it, the crisp, or just you read the minimum level so that you get the maximum out of it. No, it's not that kind of thing. What we are trying to suggest here is we are trying to put here with all the best references we have, and then we will take it forward. I hope I have answered your question. So there is no one book. It's up to you to follow if you want to take a book. But from ITLearn, we will try and make the best use of all these books and then prepare one material for you. That's what we are going to do here. Not only from these books, but also we have got other references. So and then we will put it in a place so that it will be very easy for us to crack the examination. Fine team, so let's get started. So with this, the PowerPoint would be done. From now on, we will be focusing more on Word document. So Word document, we will put we have put in our bullets and also the clear understanding, so that we will go through that, because putting everything in PPT would be a little difficult. So we have made a kind of Word document which we will use it as purpose of understanding the context or the topics. So even ISTQB has suggested the topics. So you can decide, you can even go and Google it, what each one of these topics, and read it out if you want more reference materials. But what we have put in here is the collection of artifacts from various books. Fine team, let's get started with the first thing, that is the fundamentals of testing. So we will use this as the guide. First thing that we will try to cover in today's session is that why is testing necessary, what is testing, and we will also try and cover 7 basic principles of testing before taking up the mock test. So people who are online right now can take up the mock test at the end of this session, so that you can gauge your skills, what you have grasped, and we will also discuss those questions at the end of the session. Okay, fine. First, let's talk about why is testing necessary. So what is the purpose of doing the testing? Alright, so here are few examples or the scenarios, the reason why we need to go for testing. Okay, way back in 1996, the European Space Agency have launched a rocket which was miserably failed with just after 37.5 seconds. The reason for it was a functional defect in the piece of software that they have developed. Okay, and we can also see there are many examples, such as when UK government introduced online filing tax returns, they couldn't, user can see someone else previously earned amount. So the risk is here, exposing a sensitive information. Similarly, we can see the other examples. So there are various defects that has hit the markets, and it has hit that particular organization or the brand value of the company. Okay. It can be due to n number of reasons, maybe a performance issue. We can also see one due to the performance issue, one due to the application security breach, one may be due to the functional problems, or even due to the security issues such as exposing the sensitive data. Okay. So because of all these reasons, we should ensure that our soft piece of code is tested thoroughly in all dimensions to the context that we require. In the sense, we have to define the level of testing that we need for our application. So all application don't want to go through a complete life cycle from end to end, religiously following right from smoke test to non-functional such as performance, web services testing, and okay, or security testing for that matter. We will design our test based on few factors. We will come to know about all those factors pretty soon. So here what we are trying to understand in this particular area is that it can happen due to any number of reasons, but we need to understand because of these reasons we need to do or perform software testing. We are here to understand why we require software testing, because it might lead to even death or business reputation or loss of money. It can be due to a financial constraint, it can lead to financial turmoil, or also time or business reputation, or at times it can result to death or injury in case of we are handling high critical machinery applications such as flight or rocket or something like that. Okay. Now we will talk about the reasons of these problems. Okay, where these problems can occur. First thing is when your specification is wrong, when your design is wrong, or your implementation is wrong. It can be due to any of these reasons. Your specification, design, or implementation of your software is wrong, or the way in which you use the system is wrong. There are various ways a person can use. You can try and tamper it as much as you can so that it might break you. So it also depends on the usage level. We will also have sometimes environmental conditions, and if you have something like a hacking attitude and you intentionally trying to damage that particular application. So the potential consequence, there can be also one of the reason is there might be an already error that exists, but with the clear intentions of damaging it further, you are trying to attack the system, potential consequences of earlier errors. So with that, you are trying to tamper the system more. So these are most critical reasons why the software testing, or first we have seen why software testing is required. These are all the reasons of your system becoming vulnerable. In the sense, the problems associated with the system, it can be due to any of these reasons, right from design till in the production, and the way in which you use environmental conditions, and also your intentions also that matters. Fine. So what we will learn in this particular session is that we will try and learn what is a bug, defect, what do you mean by error, what do you mean by failure, what do you mean by fault, mistake, what is quality, risk, and software testing, and also what is exhaustive testing. So you can see this clearly. So we will put in place so that it is very easy to digest the fact or a particular context, which will help you to answer the questions asked in the ISTQB exam. Okay, so we are trying to put in a very easy, simple wordings, and also without losing the context. That is most important. Not just putting the things very simpler here, but without losing the context, and also the flow. We will maintain the flow, and also we will ensure that we are putting the best artifacts for you to easily understand the concept. Fine. So now it's let's learn all these concepts. What is an error? What is a risk? And all these other relevant concepts. Fine. What is an error? So if someone makes an error, how we can make it very simply is that assume that your software engineer or your developer has done something incorrectly. Okay. So a mistake or an error in the software which may lead to a problem. So it can be done from various perspectives. A person from design or from development or a BA, business analyst, or a tester can contribute to an error. So a mistake, a human action that produces an incorrect result, that is called an error or mistake. Okay, so let's be very clear. This is nothing to do with the defect. This has nothing to do with the failure. So those are different terminologies. Alright. So error, a human action that produces an incorrect result. For example, if your developer has not developed a particular context or piece of software correctly, okay, or a tester didn't test a particular scenario, or a business analyst, or it can be due to a architect issue. An architect has not designed a particular piece of component. A mistake made by a human action that produces an incorrect result will lead to an error or mistake. Fine. What is the risk? We will also need to understand what is a risk. Okay. A risk is nothing but an unintentional, something like you have a negative consequence, a future negative consequence. Usually we call it as expressed as an impact analysis or risk analysis. What is its likelihood? For example, if the weather outside is very poor, what is the impact of the inbound and outbound flights? That could be a kind of risk assessment. Okay. We will have to understand also what is a defect. We as a testers need to understand what is a defect. We might have known this in the past, but we need to understand when a defect arises. A flaw in a component that can cause the component or a system to fail. So an incorrect statement or a definition, when it has been detected is that when you detect this particular thing at the execution phase, when you detect this particular problem in the test execution phase, it's known as a defect or bug, okay, or a fault. But what is a failure means? Failure happens after delivering the system to the end users. Okay, so there are three different terminologies around the same area. First is the error, second is the defect, third is the failure. Okay, so error, the problem that we make it, in the sense the a human action that produces an incorrect result. The defect is the area wherein you execute a set of statements, and if your expected is not equal to actuals, and then you mark it as a defect, and it goes through the defect life cycle. We will talk about the second half of whatever the terminologies we are understanding in the later part of this chapters. That's how even the syllabus has been designed. Okay, now here to understand what a defect means. So defect, an incorrect statement or a data definition. It is encountered during execution. This is the most important thing. During you execute the piece of code, and then it can be due to a unit testing, or it can be due to the integration testing, system testing, can be during any of the testing phases. Alright. But a failure happens once you deliver it to the clients or end users. Okay. Deviation of the component or system from its expected delivery, service or result. So you deploy your software, you deliver or you ship your product to end users, and your end user comes back with this problem. It is called a failure. It's no longer a mistake, it's no longer a defect. Clear? Team, please feel free to put in your questions in the chat channel, and I will try to answer as many questions as I can, or else we can make use of the forum that we have in our website. Okay. Any questions so far, team? I hope the concepts are clear and pretty straightforward. That's the reason why we have put in a kind of bullet points which can be easily digested. Okay, so I have not got any questions. That sounds great. So let's keep moving on. And what is, see this, it starts with an error. An error gives rise to a defect. A defect which you don't point it, or which we don't address it, can lead to a failure. So it starts all the way from the error and it ends with a failure. Fine. We will also need to understand one other key concept, which is audit. What is audit? Audit is nothing but a check, a quality check or a verification point, I would call it as, wherein you put in your efforts to check whether whatever you are doing is correct or not. Okay, it can be on the process front, it can be on the project front, it can be on anything. See, it helps us to improve the quality of the product and service, but that is just one of the verification and validation method. Okay, the process that we adopt is audit. The process that we adopt to improve the quality of the product or service, to ensure that we give our best results out of the client expectations, we follow the process called audit or a check. Fine. So when the defects arises, I think this is visible. I hope this is visible. I will just zoom it a little bit so that it is clear. Fine. So when the defects can arise, so what are the probabilities, or what are the probable chances that we can think of? It can be due to any number of reasons that we have discussed in a few minutes back. But what are the phases, in what are the different phases it can contribute is what we are talking about. Fine. The first thing is that, if you can see this one, this particular workflow, your requirement is correct, your design is correct, your build is also correct, your product is working as expected, then there is correct functional and non-functional attributes delivered. It means that you have delivered what is expected. There is absolutely no deviation. This is a kind of ideal system. A correct requirement and you meet the design, you build it to meet the design, and then you deliver the product as expected, and the product catches also the functional and non-functional bottlenecks before it gets delivered. Okay. Whereas if you see this one, this particular workflow for for one of the requirements, you have the correct requirement, you have the correct design as well. But when you are coding or when you are doing the build, if you make a mistake, the product has got bugs in it. So this is also known as a correctable defect. So if you are doing some kind of coding defect which can be corrected. So the issue happened just after the design. So it's just something to do with the coding. With code changes you can fix it. So this is a correctable defect. Fine. Let us now see a little more riskier issue. So for example, in one of the requirement, you have the requirement correct, but you made a problem or you made a biggest mistake in your design. So when your design is wrong, your build or your coding would be wrong and your product will have serious defects. Okay, we have to do the redesign to correct the defects. So you have to change all the way from here. Okay, you have to redesign your mistakes, redesign your particular algorithm, whatever you have done it, to correct the defects, and then you have to build it, and then you have to test it. So it can be it can be due to any number of factors. It can be due to the functional problem or non-functional problem. Here in particular we have made a mistake in design. Fine. Now let us also understand if we have met the requirements in this particular last requirement. So what the problem here is. So we have made a serious problem with the requirement itself, which will trickle down to all the phases of our software lifecycle. So if we make a problem or we make a mistake in the requirement, it flows through the design, it flows through our code, and finally whatever piece of code that we deliver might be a wrongful product. It's not the correct product which is intended. So the defects may be hidden from the IT team, including testers. So with this, what context that we can understand is that, so what, in which phase, in each one of these phases, what are all the problems that arises and where we can do this and what we need to do to eliminate the problem. So here we need to do redesign. Here we need to fix the problem with the code. Here we need to change the requirement altogether. Fine. So team, any questions so far? I'm happy to answer your questions if you have got any. So far we have covered a handful of topics and we will continue to do so because there are a list of other topics that are lined up for the day. So team, any questions? So pretty straightforward, isn't it? So if you have, if you even understood the concepts in the flow, or if you have prior experience in testing, the concepts are easy to understand, but your application thought process will improve by this particular session and also with the mock tests. Fine. Let's keep going. So the next thing is that the effect of these defects. So what is the effect? Is that the effect is how much you need to shell out more money to fix your problems. Okay. So you can see this particular graph, it is exponentially increasing. Your cost of fixing the defects increases over time. For example, you can see right from here. So if it is during the testing process, how much you need to put in your effort. If it is during the build process, how much. If it's during the design process, how much it costs. Or if it's during the requirement itself, how much it costs. You see here, if you fix your defects right from the requirement phase, it's pretty cheap. As and when you move through the software development or test life cycle, you are landing up into more serious problems. So during the design and build, so when you are ready for your live use, and if you find that there is a problem with your requirement, we are in serious problem. So your cost is going to increase exponentially. So let me put it in a rough figures. So if the cost of fixing defect in your requirements is $10, so it would be something like in design it would be multiplied by 10, 100 and 1000, it's 10,000 and 100,000. for live use. So that is what we are talking about. It increases exponentially. Fine. So this is one of the effect of the defect. This the problems that we have seen. So when do defects arise? So that is one of the problems. The effect of that is what we are talking about. The cost of fixing the defects. Fine. Fine. So let's go to the next thing. Next thing is that the topic as per our what is the syllabus is that keeping software under control. So here we will talk about the testing and risk. Okay. Here what is a risk and what is the thing that we need to adopt? What is the strategy that we need to adopt during our testing? Okay. Fine. The risk we have already explained. What is a risk? It's nothing but a negative implication, that uncertainty, I would call it as the uncertainty which might affect you more towards your software lifecycle or test lifecycle. Fine. So let's talk about this particular example, friends. This is really a good thing. So for example, you have an automatic flight control system or also a video gaming system. Now what we will try and do is that which one is more complex, which is more vulnerable, and also in which particular scenario the stakes are high, the risk is high. So we need to understand the context here. So this is why we need to have a clear demarcation between the risk assessment and then what we need to do when we have such kind of complex systems. Okay. So the flight control system is more complex, isn't it? I think everyone will accept to the fact that flight control systems is more complex. The reason is we are dealing with life. So it's a matter of life and death here. So it is more complex and also more riskier. So here we need to understand the context. So if the risk is more, you need to have a robust testing mechanism in place. So the greater the probability of failure, the complex system is. Whereas a video gaming system, you probably do a kind of testing, even if you miss something, it is not going to impact financially, or it is not going to put your reputation under risk. Whereas your flight control system will do it. Okay. So for that matter, example I'm telling. So for that matter, US Federal Aviation has got its standards for test coverage. So a greater risk implies more. This is what the thing that we need. A greater risk implies more and better testing. So if the risk is more, the impact is more, and the probability of failure would be more. Okay. So we need to ensure that we are concentrating on this factor right from the beginning of the testing lifecycle. Okay, team. So please put in your questions if you have got any. So if non-tester comes to testing, what has to know to become a good tester? So if non-tester comes to testing, so to rephrase you, so to my understanding, what I can understand is that you are not from a testing background, but you want to be a good tester. If that is the case, we need to go through the process. Your understanding about the testing life cycle, the basics of testing. We have also QA live program, and wherein you understand the basic QA concepts. And then you have to go through, probably your certification can improve your knowledge on that. So after I finish the foundational course, what type of job I will search for? So these are all offline questions, team. So we have already done with the orientation session. So now we are already into this particular context that we are into the session. So we will try and understand the concepts. So if people are having problems with the context that we are talking about, I am ready to answer. So whatever the offline questions, please post it in the forum. We have a very good tech support, the turnaround time of 24 hours. So please post it there. We will address all your questions there. So apart from that, right from now on, please put your questions with regards to the concepts that we deal, so that it will improve both of our efficiencies. Right? Great, team. So if you have got any questions, any other questions? Great. So let's moving on. So it's all very simple topics, and I have put it in bullet points so that it is easy to read and digest, and we can apply, or wherever we need more attention, I have also highlighted. I will also talk about those points more than the other areas. So the next thing is the testing and quality. So what are all the factors that will drive you to the result? One is the time factor, cost factor, and the quality factor. You can see the three vertices of triangle. The final outcome is the feature. So how much time, money, and your quality inputs that you are putting in to bring up a better product. So quality depends on time as well as money. So the final feature depends on three factors. Okay, what the customer needs and what their expectations are. Whether the quality is nothing but the degree to which a component, system, or process meets specific requirements. Okay, so the degree to which a component, it can be a complex component or it can be a very simple system, but is it meeting the client requirements? We always go through the client requirements. Be it a test case, be it a design, be it the testing, we should focus on the client requirements. So these things we will come to know as and when we progress. Whatever may be the deliverables, it should all be associated with our client requirements, client needs or expectations. Okay, fine. So these are all the things that we need to do. So whatever I put in bullet points, even though it is all little bigger, we need to concentrate on these areas. So from these areas you can directly or indirectly get few questions. Okay, that is the reason why I have put in the bullet points here. So let's try and understand each one of these areas. Fine. First is the role of testing. What is the role of testing? It is to ensure that your product is defect free. It's to ensure that your functional and non-functional requirements are examined before you deliver it to the end users or before you ship the product. Okay, any defect that you find during this life cycle, you report it, and the particular defect will go through the defect life cycle, which we'll talk about it again later part of the sessions, upcoming sessions. Okay, testing cannot directly remove defects. This is one important thing that we need to understand. Testing cannot directly remove defects, nor it directly enhance quality. What it means that if you don't have correct process or correct implementation in place, it will not, just by testing you cannot directly remove defects. If it's problem with the requirements, you cannot handle it. We have seen the various stages of the problems, right? Testing, we are testing with regards to what we are doing. Probably you might miss requirement problems. So nor it directly enhance quality. So here, as a part of the process, we need to have a robust mechanism in place so that testing gives you a better product. Okay, so by reporting the defect, it makes their possible removal, so contributes to the enhanced quality of the system. Okay, so we are trying to enhance the quality of the system. Unless the other parameters are taken care of, your design, your requirements, and your coding, and enough testing is not done, then definitely our product is not safe. Fine. Then we also should ensure that we have a systematic coverage of the software product. We have to have our systematic coverage for each one of the modules, right from probably the login screen till the end. Probably you generate reports. Okay, so very on a very high level application that we can think of is what I'm talking about. So we have to systematically test each one of the areas and judge the quality, and then the aspect of the quality to be measured. Okay, and then testing is one of the component for the overall quality assurance activity. So what we are talking about here is testing is one of the components. Unless otherwise we take care of the other things such as design, your process, your architecture, and also your design. So when all these things are not in place, testing alone will not have a direct impact on your product. It is one of the areas which can impact your overall quality. Fine. Great. So we have discussed about the risk on the complex systems such as flight control system or a video gaming system. So assume that we are testing a flight control system. Okay, in this particular thing we need to understand or when we can stop testing, or when we can decide that okay, testing is enough, we are good for delivery. So when we have to do, or what we have to do in that particular context. So from this area I have seen a lot of questions that has come up in the recent past. So this is one area that we also need to understand. So when we have to decide that testing is enough. First is we cannot, thumb rule that we need to understand is that we cannot test everything. In a complex system with all permutation and combinations, we cannot test everything. Let's take a very simple example, my dear team. If you have a user ID and password field, both can accept alphabet and alphanumeric and special characters. Okay, and it can have a minimum length of 10 and maximum length of, let's say, 256. Will we be in a position to key in all the permutation and combinations? Definitely not. There are a lot of character sets. There are a lot of characters that you can think of. 256 length of both password and user ID field. It's going to take ages for us to test. So, but what we are trying to do, we will minimize the risk factor by understanding or keying in just alphabets and then numericals. Along with that, we also will test for few special characters. We will try the combination. So what that means that we cannot test everything. That's what the thumb rule is. We cannot test everything even if we wish to. It might be practically impossible. It might take ages to finish off the testing itself. So even if we wish to test it, we cannot test everything. Fine. So what we need to do in that case, we need to address based on the risk. If we are talking about the risk, we have talked about the risk, more complex systems, so we will focus on the more riskier areas. Alright, and then the most important aspect of the achieving acceptable result is that we need to divide and rule. In the sense, finite and limited amount of testing is by prioritizing your test. Prioritization is one of the key factors. What you need to test first. The more complex things, and then followed by high complex, then medium complex, and then low complexity test cases. In the sense, which is not going to impact your system drastically. So that's what. So most important tests include functional and non-functional. It will have both. So important test will have both functional and non-functional, but we need to prioritize or strategize our testing. Okay, fine. So team, any questions so far? So apart from testing, what else falls into quality assurance category? So quality assurance, we have a separate area that we will cover up in the upcoming sessions. Quality assurance, quality control, it's all on your way. And then what is it? Do the test analysts or engineers do the risk calculation or risk management, or there has to be a dedicated team or the PMs do that. So it depends on the experience level. Of course, moment if you are new to the particular system, you will not be able to judge the risk. But if you, over a period of time, you will be able to see the impact. But on a very big picture approach, people who are most senior in the team, they do it. Fine. So it's all very, very generic questions. Still, I will be very happy to answer these questions. So what is non-functional testing? Very good question. Team, testing is divided into two main categories of functional and non-functional. Functional in the sense, what the client requirement, what the particular system is expected to deliver. Okay. For example, if you have the user ID password field, and moment you click correct username and password, you click on submit button, it logs into the system. That is a functional case. Okay, let's see the non-functional perspective of it. Assume that your user ID and password uses a database which can be exposed to threats. Okay, so you are checking for the security aspect of your application. Okay, you key in your user ID and password without entering the password. There is a mechanism with which you bypass the particular login mechanism itself. There are things that exist like SQL injection. technique, which you can bypass the password field and you can log in. Okay, so that is a security issue. There can be also performance issue. So these are all the various factors that can contribute to your non-functional testing perspective. Whereas functional, we will stick to what each one of your requirements is. Okay, fine. But your most important test should include both functional and non-functional. Great questions, team. Please keep posting questions. It makes more interactive and it will be mutually beneficial. Fine. I think in the interest of time, we will just wrap up with this recap, and then we will do the question and answers and take up the mock test. So the recap is, what is an error, defect, and failure. So we have seen an error, a human impacted, what is a human action, which might lead to an incorrect human action, lead to an error, which might, when you find a problem with associated when during the execution, it is a defect or bug. When you ship it to the end users, it is a failure. Software failures can cause losses, give 3 consequences. We have seen those consequences on the top, very beginning. And what are the 3 vertices, triangle of resources? That again we have seen time, quality, and money. Fine, team. I think it's best time to start our test. I think there are many things that I have planned, still we couldn't do it. So I will start off the test. You can see the test on your screen. Okay, so you can just let me start the test. You can just see the test on your screen. It will be available on your screen. I'm going to launch it. We will ensure that the time taken for this particular test may be 10 minutes, not more than that. There might be few topics which may not be covered, so don't panic. It's just a starter look and feel of your ISTQB. Okay? So, which will give you a clear insight of where we stand, and we will also lot of questions that will be available on our forum, which will help you to most possible extent. Okay. Once I launch the test, I will go on mute for 10 minutes, and then I will unmute, and we can discuss the answers, and then we will proceed further. Alright, team. Any questions? Your questions will be appearing in your screen in a moment. Before that, any other questions, team? Great. So I will start the test right away. I hope you are all able to see the question and answers on your screen. Please confirm once. Any one of you? Great. Please go ahead, team. Please go ahead. Time starts now. Please go ahead and start answering the questions. Time is up. Please submit it. So I'll just end the test right now, and you will all be able to see your results right now. Okay, fine. First thing is, a company recently purchased a commercial off-the-shelf application to automate their billing process. So now they plan to acceptance test against the package prior to putting it into production. Which of their following is most likely reason for testing? So to detect defects. So very straightforward answer, because that is before the now they plan to do the acceptance testing. Fine. I think you would have also seen your scores on your screen. Fine. We will now discuss the answers for each one of those questions, which will help you to understand where you make the mistakes and it's time to correct your mistakes. Great thing. So according to ISTQB Glossary, the word bug is synonymous with which of the following words? So it's bug is nothing but a defect. It's not a fault. It's not an error. Okay. So those are two different terms. So what is the risk relates to? Risk relates to a negative consequence that can or that could occur. Okay. It is not will occur, because we are not sure whether it will occur or not. Will is certain, whereas could is uncertain, right? Because these are all the words that they usually play with, like will, could, because you should be very sure. If you are very sure of that will happen, then you go for it. Okay. And negative consequence or consequence of the test object. So deciding on how much testing is enough, it should be based on, see here, first is the level of risk, 2 is the project constraints, size of the team, and size of the dev team. So which one you need to consider is level of risk, we have seen that, and also the project constraints such as time and budget, that matters. And 3 and 4 are false. 3 is size of the testing team, size of the development team doesn't matter at all. Because you can have 2 testers, 3 testers, but we need to finally achieve the goal. But how much of testing should not be dependent on the size of the team. That is for sure. Okay. And what is true of a quality system? A system that meets a specified requirements and customer needs. Fine. The rest of the things that it's based on. So this is nothing but the definition. So nothing more to it. And you can also see there is a situation that they have given in the 6th question. A phone ringing in the adjacent cubicle, so it distracts your developer, and so what it leads to is a defect. Okay, it's not a root cause, it's not an error, it's not a failure. And then what is the general principle of testing? What is the following is the general principle testing? Is it exploratory testing, conformance, defect masking, regression? So this part we are yet to cover. So that is the next topic. So if you have marked it wrong, it's okay. So we will address this tomorrow. So what type of testing it is. And fault fix doesn't cause side effects is endured by regression testing. So this is a pretty straightforward question. So if you are given a fix, and if you want to do a kind of side effect, what you check for the side effects, you will check for regression testing. Again, this topic is yet to be covered. So because I was planned for a few things, but we couldn't do it in the interest of time, still I want to give it a go for the mock test, which is very much beneficial for you. So that's the reason why I have done it. So these questions are predefined, so I couldn't remove it from the slot. So it's all done before the start of the session. So could reviews or inspection be considered part of testing? Yes. So we will talk about the static testing, which is the next topic. Testing should be stopped. Yeah, this we have seen, isn't it? It depends on the risk of the system that is being tested. It not depends on the time, it depends on the faults, nor it depends on your plan. Okay? It depends on the complexity and the risk involved in testing that application. This we have discussed. This I think you should have got it right. Fine. According to ISTQB Glossary, again regression testing we are yet to cover. And which statement is most true? Different testing is needed depending upon the application. This is definitely this we have discussed today. We have just do a kind of contextual comparison between an automatic flight system versus your video gaming system. So it depends upon the application that we test. All software tested in the same way? Definitely not. A technique that finds defects will always find defects? Definitely not. First time using the technique, if you find a defect, very good developer would have fixed all those relevant areas. So you cannot adopt that strategy anymore. And then a technique that has found no defects is not useful. It's not like that. If it has not found defects in the next build you try it out, you might get a break. Okay. Fine. I think you hope you had a fantastic session today. It's a very good start. It's a long way to go. Still, it's a good start, I would say. So, any other questions, team? So tomorrow we are having day 2 session. We will again start with the other topics. Similarly, we have the question and answer at the end of the session, which will be really useful to gauge your where you stand and what you're understanding. Okay, it's at the same time we have scheduled it for tomorrow's session. Please join us, and this is all I have for today's session. If you have any offline questions, please post it in the forum. We have a very good tech support. You can just go to itelearn.com, itelearn.com/forums. Okay. So here we have everything to be discussed. I'll close this one so you can see this one. We have got a lot of areas wherein you can post your question. There is a separate area for ISTQB. If you want to post any questions exclusively on ISTQB, please post it and make use of the forum as far as possible. That's it, team. That's all I have for today's session. So any other questions, please post it on the forum. I will be able to answer it. Okay. Thanks a lot for joining, and have a great day. See you all tomorrow.